All right. Hello and welcome to the Wazzu Record Room, the show where we talk about your favorite music and what it means. And happy Halloween. This is our last episode. We get to see you guys before the wonderful night of Halloween. So we decided to set up our set and make it a little festive for you guys before we, wish you off and have a wonderful, safe, happy Halloween. You might be wondering why I have my wonderful 3 crewmates of Wazzu Record Room here with me on set. We have a little bit of a different episode planned out for you guys. Today, we're going to be taking turns sitting in this wonderful blue seat from Scene Storage, taking turns talking about our favorite underground music that we think deserves to be recognized on a wonderful platform like the Wazzu Record Room. And we're going to be getting some live reactions, and you guys are going to be here with us for the whole time. We're going to have their live reactions and some just live takes of this wonderful underground music that we think deserves to be a little bit more appreciated. So yeah, let's get into it.
Let's talk about it.
So honestly, when we came up for the idea for this episode, I was having such a hard time deciding what music to specifically talk about. Honestly, in my 20 years of long living, I've experienced so much music that I would consider to be underground and that just deserves more recognition. I'll bring up an artist, I'll talk about something and people are like, I don't know what that is. Or like, oh, I've heard, maybe one song. I'm like, damn, more people need to hear what this music is about. And I finally narrowed it down to Alanis Morissette, a wonderful artist who really started peaking her career towards like the late 90s. I'm specifically going to be talking about her album, Jagged Little Pill.
Turn 98, you won the lottery, and died the next day. It's a black fly in your Chardonnay. It's a death row.
Which was released on June 13th, 1995. And it really had a very direct stylistic departure from her first 2 albums called Now Is Time and Alanis. Both of her previous albums kind of had more of like a melancholy, like sort of chill vibe. But when we listen to Jagged Little Pill, we can totally tell that this is just completely not the same. She comes out with such bold and directness in this album. And it really kind of like marks the pivotal moment in her career where she's like, I'm now writing this new type of rock pop music. Like most music I will probably be talking about on this show, I have a very personal connection to this album. When I was a kid, I used to steal my mom. I wouldn't steal, but I would borrow. I would take my mom's...
Borrow without permission. That's a good way to put it.
Without permission. But also my mom didn't really have a problem with it either. I would take my mom's iPod, this big, fat, white, chunky iPod, and I would just like scroll through all of her music and kind of just like... It was so fun because like the way that the old iPod is set up, you can just like scroll forever. It was like made perfectly for that, right? And I would just like look through all of her albums and pick the one with the prettiest picture and just like listen to it. And Jagged Little Pill has actually a really cool cover. So I picked out Jagged Little Pill and I would just like pace through my backyard barefoot, just like pretending I was like the main character of some like dramatic movie. And I didn't know what any of the songs meant, honestly. But there was just such a big like power in her voice. And I knew that her words were important and someday it would make sense to me. And I was just like, I'm just going to listen to this. I love it. So now at 20 years old, when I'm listening to this album, I'm like, damn, this makes sense. This album with songs like Not the Doctor and You Ought to Know, this album is like a raging feminist. It's just like so angry at the patriarchal society. And I'm like, oh, that's just like me. How perfect, right? How fitting that would only make sense. So of course, for such a perfect album, I need to talk about a specific song. I can't just, throw the whole thing at you guys. That's too much. We don't have that time. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about a song called You Ought to Know. And it's like the perfect bad breakup song. Like when you think of like anything that could possibly go wrong in a breakup, she writes all about it in this song.
So the 90s Taylor Swift is what you're saying.
Essentially. Yeah. But Alanis is a little bit more like rude. She's like, I don't care. Like, yes, I'm really sad about the breakup, but most of all, screw you. She's like, and Taylor Swift, she's a little bit nice about it. Taylor Swift is just like, I hope that you're sad. I hope wherever you are, you're sad. But Alanis is like, you better be sad or I'm coming for you, So in this song specifically, she talks about like the raw, terrible emotions after a breakup. And it kind of feels like you're being yelled at, just get a load of this.
I want you to know that I'm be for you. I wish nothing but the best for you both.
Okay, I'm gonna cut it right there, but I feel like we really need to just talk about like the first opening line. She kind of paces it out, right? Like, what do you guys think?
It's that passive aggressiveness, and I kind of dig it. I mean, I'm happy for you both. Like, you're really not, but like that's what you say, and I kind of dig the subtle jab in there.
Yeah, and like when I'm listening to it now, I can totally pick up like clues from Olivia Rodrigo's song. What was it called? What's it called? Good for You. That's right. The song Good for You. So Olivia Rodrigo's song Good for You has like a lot of the similar meanings of this song. She's kind of like, oh, like wherever you are, you're doing so good. Like, look at your beautiful life. But what about me? But the way that Alanis writes it is just like so direct. And with this line that we just listened to, there's two different meanings that you can sort of pick up. Like it could be like a literal meaning, like I'm actually trying to turn a new leaf in this breakup. Like, I hope you guys are doing great. But honestly, there's another sarcastic tone you can pick up from this as well. That's like, I'm so happy for you guys. I wish nothing but the best for you both. And with this next line, we can sort of immediately realize that she is probably being sarcastic.
I know the version of me. Is she perverted like me? Would she go down on you in a theater? Does she speak eloquently? And would she have your baby? I'm sure she'd make a really excellent mother.
I love that line following it. Like, she's so passive aggressive. She's so mad. Like, oh my God. She's like, oh, does she speak eloquently? Would she have your baby? Would she make an excellent mother? Like, she's like, look what you did. Like you had it so good and then you just screwed it up.
I love the way she said theater. It's like theater.
Theater. Yeah, of course. She gets really specific.
It's a little
about it.
intimidating, for sure. I mean, it's still that passive aggressiveness, but she definitely ramps it up to like 100.
Yeah, and like
line.
exactly, like the opening line, she's like, she kind of paces it out, and then immediately following, she's like, another version of me, like, what the heck? And she's just so mad, But all in all, I love this artist, and she might not be underrated for an older crowd. Like, I know my mom loves this album.
My mom really likes Alanis Morissette's music.
Josh's mom loves Alanis Morissette as well. I need to listen to more of her music, but honestly, I highly recommend this album and specifically this artist for our younger audience. If you're looking for some rock pop that just makes you kind of like think about everyone that's ever wronged you in life and makes you just want to rage and scream and just be mad at the world, then I highly recommend Alanis Morissette and specifically Jagged Little Pill. And with that, I think it is now Josh's turn to get up on this seat and talk about his underrated music. Let's get into it.
So for those of you that don't know me, when I first came to this town, came to Washington State University, a lot of people just assumed, kind of based off my aesthetic that I was giving off, that I'm really into country. That's like my favorite genre.
Tell them about the horses, Josh.
Different episode, not this episode. But yeah, so I sort of have given off this like country vibe, and people are like, oh, that must be your favorite album or favorite genre of music. Well, no, actually, you're wrong. And I'm going to be breaking that stereotype today by talking about my favorite niche album. It's Only Rock and Roll by the Rock Bottom Boys.
Rock Bottom Boys, don't they do like a hillbilly twist on things?
I mean, yes. So maybe this wasn't the best choice for kind of quote unquote breaking the country stereotype. But in all seriousness, the reason I chose the Rock Bottom Boys for this episode was actually quite for a few reasons. And again, it is sort of an interesting choice for our show. It's actually the first cover band that we are going to be talking about, or cover artist for that matter. But the big reason why I chose Rock Bottom Boys as my pick for not only band, but for their album for this episode as well, It's Only Rock and Roll, is because one thing that they do really well in their music is they add a lot of comedy to it. I've actually seen this band perform live quite a few times now, and they love to interject comedy. And sometimes that can definitely be a risk for artists. I mean, especially right now, there's definitely been a lot of debate in the mainstream media about comedy, about what is acceptable about a joke and what isn't. And what I think this band does really well, especially with this album and the live performances that they've done with this album, is they're able to take comedy to make a personal connection with their audience without it straying over that line of offensiveness, which can definitely be hard to decide, especially since comedy is a very subjective type of thing. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about your comedy and music.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really listen. The only comedy music I've ever really listened to is Weird Al. And that was when I was like 13. And, you know, some of that can be a little bit offensive. Like, I know he made the one song, it was like a parody off of the Michael Jackson song Bad. And it was a song about being fat. And I remember my mom was like, this is really offensive. And I was like 13. And I'm like, no, it's not. But like, who am I to say if it's offensive or not, you know? That's my only experience with comedy music. So I'm sure it's a little different.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I think what this band does really well is that they're able to use that and take different genres of music, because they don't just do covers like hillbilly covers of rock and roll. They take a bunch of other genres as well, and it creates it so it's a very stable environment for sort of anyone of any demographic to get involved. I mean, it even says on their home website, we perform music from ages 8 to 80. And I think that really is very true, is even though it is very, very goofy, you know, it's literally like kooky hillbilly covers of various different songs, it doesn't really matter what age you are. I think anybody can get a kick out of listening to their music and just the fun that they have with it. So again, this album definitely is sort of a little bit of a deviant from our normal content that we talk about. It doesn't have quite a deeper meaning like some of the songs we talked about, like Blonde. It doesn't have quite the snippy attitude as Alanis Morissette, but I think this is just a good feel good album that anybody can listen to and just have a good time with it. The other thing about it that I really enjoy, what makes it one of my favorite, is even though it is a cover band, they don't produce their own original content, they still are very creative with it. And one thing is, if you listen to some of the songs on this album, you're going to hear something weird, some weird different sounds, and that's actually because they took household items such as a milk jug and a washboard, and they literally turned them into instruments. I mean, just the creativity behind that. I mean, imagine if we started, I mean, name a song, any song. YMCA. Okay. I want you to play YMCA by slapping the couch right now.
I can't.
Well, you see,
YMCA. See,
almost-
you can't make any tone with it. I don't know.
You know,
That's pretty tough to do.
instrument.
It is.
My pumpkin.
But yeah, so that was a very bad example, but I appreciate the effort. But that's something that they do, is they are able to take these sort of items that you would never think you can make a song with it, and they actually create quite a good sound that's really fun to listen to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that sort of style totally reminds me of, there's that one, I think it's called Stomp. It's like that one, like,
They use garbage cans.
where like they just like use garbage cans and like keys and like household items, like you were explaining, Josh, and they just like make a lot of sound out of it. And it's like I think it's like a Broadway show, but I don't know if it's like hillbilly specific, but it's really cool when people are able to like make pitches and like really produce music with just like household items like that. It's incredible.
Yeah, and definitely, even though it is, like I said, cover, I still think there's a lot of creativity that is put into their performances and into the songs they make. So that's my pick for favorite album. It's Only Rock and Roll by the Rock Bottom Boys. Just a little bit of background on the band that I forgot to do at the beginning is they did start in 2009, and this album in particular came out in 2011. They still do tours, they still perform. I highly recommend that you look up their YouTube page, because when I looked on Spotify, I noticed that their full discography wasn't all the way on there. So definitely I would look at their YouTube to actually see the performance and see the comedy and really a lot of the effort that they put into it, because I think that's their highlight when they're performing live. That's just my opinion, though. The album on Spotify and other platforms is still really good and really fun to listen to just in your car or wherever you're going. But I definitely recommend you check them out. They only tour in the Western states, according to their website. So if you're Middle America or East Coast, you especially might not have ever heard of them. So I definitely recommend looking up their stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Let's listen. Let's get a little listen and hear what they're like.
You really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing now.
Josh, I heard somewhere that cover bands are only cover bands because they never have the balls to write a song for someone else. What do you have to say about that?
So again, what I would say to that is it depends on what you're doing. I mean, some people do cover because they just really appreciate the band and they want to, they're a tribute band. They want to pay tribute to them. And I think in the case of this band, Rock Bottom Boys, again, they're doing a fun, kooky hillbilly twist on it. So it's meant to be fun. They're not producing original music for the sake of like becoming famous or becoming a platinum band. Like I said, they even said on their own website that they only really tour in the Western states. So I think in that case, it's fine because there's still creativity being put into it with the original use of household items like the milk jug and washboard. And they're doing it for people's entertainment. They're not really into it to create their own original content. So I think it's fine. I still think that depending on what you're doing with, there still can be a lot of creativity, even with a cover band, if they're not making their own original music. So I'm actually going to stop it there. So that was a cover of Honky Tonk Woman. And the reason I'm going to stop it there before it actually really got to the singing is because you're hearing this sort of scratching noise that's going on, as well as what sounds like some vocals. And that's a really good example of the washboard and the milk jug being used to actually create the melody for the cover of the song.
Yeah, I was totally gonna ask. I was like, what like sounds are those? Because I know you mentioned it's like with like household items. I'm like, that is such a cool clanky sound. Like,
Yeah,
what
so
is
that actually was the washboard. And again, they do use instruments, like you did hear the acoustic guitar coming in. When I've also seen them live before, I believe they also had a bass player and then someone on drums, if I'm remembering that correctly. But other than that, everything else was just various household items that they're just making sounds with, almost like kind of a version of a cappella, really, but with uncanny instruments.
It sounded to me almost like they were like holding a mic behind like a horse that was just kind of trotting along. It has that like gallop, well, not a gallop technically, but a trot to it. And I kind of, with the washboard, and yeah, no, it's I'm very impressed by what they accomplished with household items.
Yeah,
Good hillbilly vibe.
for sure. I was gonna add in like almost like the beginning of the sound to me sort of sounds like the opening to the song "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay."
Yeah.
Sort of like the like clanky like mellow drums. I was like, oh, I kind of recognize this tune, but I totally didn't. It was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
So with all those points being said, that is why I wanted to talk about this album. And I think now we're actually going to go to Joe's favorite album.
All right, so today for my album that I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about All Things Must Pass by George Harrison. And I know that we wanted to do sort of like an underground, underknown artist, and I guess I sort of misunderstood the assignment.
She cannot stop talking about the Beatles. We choose an underground artist and she chooses a Beatle for it. Like,
He's not underground.
I'm fed up. I'm fed up.
We
to
gotta
be quite
dig him
honest.
out. He's not underground.
He's dead.
He's literally. Anyways,
Yeah, I only know the Beatles, so it's the only music I listen to. So I had to talk about George Harrison with All Things Must Pass. This album came out on November 27th, 1970, and it is an older album, and it recently had its 50th year anniversary, and it had a re-release for the album as well. So it's a great time to either revisit it or listen to it for the first time. So I think it's time for our generation to really get into it, this amazing, incredible album, and listen to it for the first time. That's why I think it's not underground, but a little well known by people our age. And I think that everyone deserves to listen to this incredible album. So I think we should get into it. And I definitely want to talk more about all these incredible songs. First off, this album has almost 30 songs, 28 songs. It's a very long album. When it was first released, it was actually released on 3 LPs. And there are so many great songs. There's like sad, question your existence songs, some moving love songs. You throw in some great guitar solo tracks, and then boom, you have this incredible album. And the first song that I want to talk about is called All Things Must Pass. It's what the album is named after. I really love this song. I think it's one of the best songs on the entire album because it's so melodic and it's so calming, and the lyrics of the songs really focus on the fact that all things in this life, good or bad, will eventually move on. Nothing is here for forever. So it's a really wonderful message, I think, for people to sort of know that, nothing is that serious. Nothing will last forever in this life. So it's okay to let things go and things like that. But along with like the lyrics and letting things go, the song has this great little slide guitar whine played by George Harrison, and it goes up and it goes down, and it sort of goes along with like the overall message that things go up and things go down, and that's okay. But it's an excellent slide guitar. George Harrison was a master at it, in my opinion. He really honed his skills for this album. And I actually want to play a little bit of it for you guys.
Yes, let's listen. I'm so excited.
All things must pass. All things must pass away.
But yeah, so overall, this song I think is really beautiful. The message is great, like knowing that all things will move on. And I think it's just a wonderful message for people to really take in and take to heart. And then the next song that I want to talk about is the Ballad of Sir Frankie Crisp, Let It Roll. And it's a perfect feel-good song for me. Every time I listen to it, I feel like I'm standing in a field of flowers, sort of like Colleen when you were young, just like walking around your backyard.
Exactly.
But it's just all vibes, just listening to it. It kind of sort of carries on that same message of just letting things go and letting it roll and rush over you. And in the chorus, the song kind of like drops off and you just hear the vocals of Let It Roll, but then it picks up back again with Billy Preston on the keys. And it's such a good song. It's very soothing. And again, it just makes you feel like you're just floating through air. They used a lot of reverb in the song, which gives it a really great sort of ethereal quality. And I personally love it. I could just listen to it all day, just let it like wash over me and really calm me out. So yeah, everyone should really be listening to these great songs. And then the third song is sort of a different, not as calming or anything like that, but it's called The Art of Dying, which sounds kind of heavy. And I think it is. Like the intro guitar is so heavy and it kicks off with those great drums. It was actually performed by Ringo Starr on the drums. Again, a Beatles reference.
Peace and love.
Yeah.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
We love him.
Filthy Beatles, man, get rid of them.
Peace and love. For those who are watching, Ringo Starr is like, he's the drummer of the Beatles, and he has a TikTok account, and I love it so much. Joe and I will watch the TikToks all the time, but he has these videos where he just goes, peace and love, everyone, peace and love. And like on his birthday, he had everyone
July
like
12th.
do it. Yeah, like he had everyone say peace and love like at noon on his birthday. It was just really sweet. So I just had to throw that in.
What a time to be alive that a Beatles member has a TikTok.
I know.
No,
like
I know, it's great.
as soon as I found out, I was like, follow. I'm like, I'm like, I love him. I love Ringo content. It's amazing.
Yeah, Ringo's
Anyways.
so good. I like his MS Paint era. That was really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then with our love of Ringo, we have to, like, on the other hand, we have to talk about Eric Clapton. He plays on this album a lot, and he is heavily featured on this song. One, because it has some really great guitar solos, and the only props I can ever give to Eric Clapton is that he was an incredible guitarist. But honestly, I freaking hate Eric Clapton. Down with Eric Clapton. All right, couch. Can I get a fuck Eric Clapton?
Eric
Fuck
Clapton.
I don't think he's that bad, but
Damn. Okay.
If someone tells me to say something, I'll say it, especially if it's Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will make her say anything and everything. But yeah, so this song, it kicks off with this great, strong guitar like intro with the drums. And this song talks about reincarnation, which something that George Harrison was a believer in. He credits like a lot of his spirituality in his time to a lot of acid trips in the late 60s, which is pretty cool. But don't do drugs. First off, don't do drugs. Second off, that was kind of fun of him. But so he really talks about reincarnation and the fact that if you have earthly ties and earthly possessions, then you won't really understand the art of dying, and that you'll be, just forced to come back and live life again as an unenlightened person. But hey, that's okay. And this song is like a little preachy to me, in my opinion. Like it goes a little hard, but he does leave his thoughts and beliefs up for interpretation with the ending line, "Can you believe me?" But I do want to play you guys the sweet guitar solo that's around the 2-minute mark, and you guys should definitely check it out. I don't know about you guys, but I love that.
That just gave me, this is going to be so weird, but for whatever reason, that like guitar riff tasted like steak to me. I don't know how else to explain that, but I feel like it's maybe because like as a kid, my family would have a lot of dinner parties and we would listen to like that kind of music. It might have even been that song. And I would just be like mindlessly like eating steak while I'm like listening to this like beautiful like guitar music in the background. That's my own deal. But I feel like that sounded like steak to me. What did you guys think?
I just like that quote. That quote's gonna resonate for a while.
Yeah, that guitar riff was definitely like a heavy meal. I feel like, tasted good. I appreciate that. It's a good take. Tastes like steak. But yeah, I love that guitar solo. I think it's so good. It just feels so heavy and so strong. So I'm really happy that you equated it to, like a hearty meal. So that's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so now that I'm done talking about All Things Must Pass, I definitely think that everyone here on this couch and everyone viewing should definitely go check it out and listen to some great music. It'll really mellow you out and just really calm you down. That's what it does to me. So hopefully you guys enjoy it.
So finally, it's my turn to talk in this chair. I feel I'm the resident EDM fan on this show. Maybe you guys listen to a little bit, but not like I do. I am a big thumping bass kind of guy. So for my artist, I decided to delve into that genre. I also, when I heard that the goal of this episode was going to be to pick a unrecognized, maybe artist that deserves a little bit more, exposure, I decided to go as, narrow fielded as I could. So I went into a very niche subgenre within EDM. And I also picked like an even more niche artist within that genre. So I would not be surprised if anyone listening to this show has ever heard of them. But, that's kind of the fun of scoping out artists that, you don't get heard all of the time. But to begin, I am going to kind of give a crash course on the genre, particularly future funk, which is the genre that I'm going to be covering this artist in. Most people probably haven't even heard of future funk as well. Again, that niche genre. It has some key components. It's derived from French house, which popular names like Daft Punk and Justice belong there. But the highlighting elements within future funk are that they sample a lot of disco and R&B and Japanese pop. Also some other technical aspects for my music producer homies out there. It has a lot of compression, a lot of auto filters or flangers, phasers, and it's kind of characterized by that classic house beat, that boom, tss, boom. Tss. That's a terrible rendition, but you guys know what I'm talking about.
I get it.
Four to
I
the
get what
floor.
you're saying.
So yeah, characterized by all those sort of aspects. And future funk, because it derives so much of its sound from samples, it has gotten a lot of criticism in the past about not being transformative or ripping other people's work. But now that I'm moving into the artist that I'm going to be talking about, you can see that in the right hands, the genre is entirely transformative. You can't even tell really what the samples are. When they are recognizable, it's, in a completely creative and clever way that they're implemented. So the artist that I'm going to be talking about today is Unibeat, and I have to preface, it's spelt with an @ symbol for the A. So finding this guy on Spotify is always a pain in the ass. But you know, if you spell it right, he should pop up. But he has about 10,000 Spotify listeners, so not a grand audience to be in comparison to a whole lot of other artists.
So he
But
really is underground. There's
he is
only 10,000.
underground.
And I will say, to be honest, I did almost delete the symbol because I did actually think it was a typo in the script.
Yeah, no, he's so underground that he can't even use the Latin,
just- yeah.
Arabic alphabet or whatever. Like he can't use normal letters. But
It's too cool.
Unibeat, not only in his name, he thrives on his sampling techniques. That's where he really excels in his music. You know, that whole transformative argument that people have talked about in the past. With Unibeat, that's not even in the question because this guy just does a crazy amount of sampling and the way he chops and corkscrews them. Like this first song that I want to talk about, Drugs, off of his 2018 album Junk V2, is an excellent taste test of how he samples music. Yeah, so with that, I mean, what's your guys' first impressions? I mean, it's kind of out there, but I dig it.
I like the beat. I thought it was pretty catchy. It's definitely like uplifting. I could see that kind of being like the right atmosphere for like sort of like a rave. Not as intense, but like I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's
I
a bit
liked
more
it.
mellow. I mean, the song is called Drugs. I like to imagine that, you know, that's what dropping tabs at Electric Daisy Carnival would be like. Never done it, by the way. Mom and Dad, I have never done that, but
Don't do drugs.
yeah, so I mean, that's what I would imagine it like, or that's how I feel about that song.
Yeah, it had
But-
a really good groove. I enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
it's again, it's very funkadelic. That's kind of the highlighting characteristics of it. Yeah. And that kind of, you know, gives you a basic idea of what he's doing. But from every song, I mean, it's so drastically different. And sometimes, so like with the sample in that song, you can't really tell like right away what song that originally was because he chops and corkscrews it all the time. But sometimes he does take samples that are like instantly recognizable, but the way he implements them are very clever and intuitive and inventive with, you know, using it without the course or throughout the course of a song. One song in particular that sticks out of my head, a personal favorite, is Routine off his 2019 album Working Memories. And this opens with like a minute long cut up version of the Jaws theme. And I just think
gosh.
it's so amazing. So I want to give you guys a listen. So yeah, you guys kind of get it. Like that sample is like everyone has heard the Jaws theme, but he even kind of like, you know, plays with a little bit. Still very very iconic and recognizable, but it's definitely like, you know, he's injecting it into this song. And I'm gonna cut right here to the next part of the song. So yeah, I mean, like, we just went from the Jaws theme to whatever the heck that was. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I dig it like through the moon.
Dare I say that song reminds me a little bit about a 100 Gex song. I know it's like probably a hot take, but 100 Gex has a lot of similar styles, I would say, and like they kind of like to throw around some random songs. It's definitely a little bit more relaxed and chill than the hyper pop beat you'll find on a 100 Gex track, but that's what it reminded me of. I really like that.
I am absolutely flabbergasted that you just tried to compare my man Unibeat to 100 Gex. Like,
I think you really
Me-
need to give them a shot. You
yeah,
do.
we need to preface that me and Colleen have had some off-screen banter about 100 Gex. She also went and saw them live, so
I did.
you know she does have a connection to it. But regardless, yeah, so you guys get the gist. He uses samples very heavily. I'm gonna let you guys listen to one more song, Expectations, from his 2017 album Origins. This is just another kind of example of how he uses samples in a variety of ways. I like to say that with this song, he does like multi-layering sample where there's multiple parts of a song playing at one time. And it's just so transformative that, you know, the argument about the song being a rip of someone else's work can't even like compute with how Unibeat makes these songs. So I'll let you guys have a listen to that right now. So yeah, a little bit there you can kind of hear there's like various parts of the song playing throughout the same part of his song. The original sample, it's layered over the top of one another to make a new song kind of entirely. And I really respect that, but I don't know how you guys feel about it.
No, you said that it's like all of his songs he samples from other stuff, but I've honestly never really heard anything like him. So you can tell that yes, all of his work comes from other people, but he makes it completely his own, and never heard anything like it. It's good. Yeah,
I was very eager at the opportunity to talk about my favorite underground artist, because this guy, you know, he's so out there in how he makes music. I mean, there are other people like him, but there's no one that does it like him. That's how I'll like to describe it. And personally, like, there's too many songs that I'd love to talk about for hours, but out of the respect of you guys, the audience, and my crewmates as well, I'm going to just leave you guys with a couple more recommendations of songs that I really like. Some are like Konnichiwa, Heartbeat, Underground Wannabe, French Society, Fantasy. What's another one? That and insert Japanese text here. And you can kind of tell with some of those titles, he's very self-deprecating or kind of ironic in his titles, and I think that's another unique part about him that I really like. You know, working with music myself, like I know how, like when you're making songs, you just name your projects the most weird things. Yeah, and this guy, it feels like he has the balls to just like make that the actual song title, so I can respect that.
For sure.
So that looks like the end of our episode. We're so glad you could join us with the rest of my fabulous co-hosts over here. We are glad that we can keep making this content for you. We're glad that you guys listen to our underground artist picks. Let us know in the comments if there's any artists that just completely fly under the radar and you guys think we should listen to, and we'll definitely check them out. Maybe even in a future episode. We hope that you guys have a fabulous Halloween. We also want to let you know that we have a Spotify now that'll be linked in the description. So all the songs that we mentioned today are gonna be in the description of this episode. Go check them out. If there's any songs that you heard a snippet of that you really like, go check it out. And I guess we will see you guys next time. How does that sound?
Let's talk about it.
There is one vital fact I would like to submit.